Hello everyone, my name is BlackWatch and welcome to another episode of How to Play. In this week's episode we're going to be taking a look at the Korean attacker Grace Nam, also known as Dokkaebi. She's probably the one that was the most hyped up operator coming out in the White Noise expansion, and she's pretty interesting. She's the Aiden Pierce hacker boy of the group, and she's the one that a lot of people have been talking about for a while because her ability is something that the community have wanted for a long time. So let's look into how it works and how you can get the most out of her. So Dokkaebi is a 2-armor, 2-speed operator on the attacking side. As mentioned, she's a part of the 707th Special Missions Battalion, which is a Korean CTU, along with her compatriot Vigil, who is for another video. Interesting one there. She's got access to 2 primary weapons, the Mark 14 EBR marksman rifle, which is very good DMR. It's got fairly low damage for the DMRs in general, but it's got basically negative recoil, especially with a foregrip. You're literally traveling nowhere with those shots, and with the angled grip it's just as good. So very, very good, very accurate DMR if you want to use that, if you're into that kind of thing. Her other thing, it's a bit of a meme cannon, and it's not one that I would recommend unless you want to go about memeing for a while. As a competitive weapon, it's shocking. It's the 2-shot Bosk G12. I think Rogue 9 put it well when he called it the blatantly overpowered shotgun. It's basically a one-hit kill on pretty much every operator in the game within certain distances, but it is, as I say, a meme cannon. Once you use those 2 shots, you got to reload, and you're left in a difficult situation where you either got to swap, which is enough time to get clocked, or you got to reload, which is also enough time to get clocked. Our secondaries kind of make up for that, and that's the SMG-12, which is arguably the best micro SMG in the game. Statistically it is. In terms of practice, I think that the drop-off in terms of accuracy is quite severe. A lot more severe than the other ones. It just flies haywire very quickly. But it's still a good SMG, and the other one is the C75 Auto, which is also decent. It has more damage at close range, but that's pretty much the only upside it has over the SMG. It can't take any attachments apart from a suppressor. So it's better to take the SMG, which can have 2 different kinds of foregrips, and it can also have reflex sights and all that sort of fun stuff. So bring the SMG-12 out of the 2 of them. Her secondary gadgets are smoke grenades and claymore. Her unique gadget is the ballistic armor military laptop, codenamed Logic Bomb. This is basically her drone camera. Is mounted to her chest, and it acts as her primary gadget, and it allows her to hack into the phones of the enemy team. So what this does is that she sits, it's about a 2-second upload time, and it sets off an alarm on all the phones, so they start buzzing, and it will continue to buzz and emit that noise that the attackers can hear until they take the phone out and turn it off. So it takes quite a while to turn it off. You've got to sit there, and you're vulnerable in this animation whilst you're tapping away at the phone until you turn it off. So it's a good harassing ability, and it's one that gives the attacker some intel on the positions of roamers. And the likes of Vigil, if you know he's in a room and you can't see him, you can always just pop your Logic Bomb, and then you can hear where he is, and that's still pretty solid intel for his position. It also has the ability to hack into a dead operator's phone and then access the camera feeds of the defenders, and that includes Valkyrie cams. So you just got to walk up to a dead operator, they'll have dropped their phone, and as long as their teammates haven't destroyed it, which is one of the ways to counter Dokkaebi, she can sit and hack into it. It takes probably about 3.5 seconds. I don't know the exact times, I could be completely wrong, but it's a hell of a long time. So it's worth it in a lot of ways, but in other situations it might be best just sweeping and clearing the place before you sit down and hack into the camera feed. So, as I say, her strengths are the solid DMR that she has. It really is one of the fun ones. I've always enjoyed the DMRs in the game, and hers is no exception. So, if you like single-shot weapons like that, then you're going to enjoy this one. She has very good secondaries. As I say, the SMG-12 is the more successful of the 2, but the CZ isn't that bad either. Her ability is very practical in terms of harassment, because it can be used to just make people uncomfortable. It can also be used to, give you intel of their positions. So it's one that's always going to be useful as long as it's used correctly. But that's the biggest weakness of her, is that it's very, very easy to waste the gadget. There's been quite a few games where I've joined as a defender, and my phone is ringing no more than 20 seconds into the action phase, this is a complete waste of what is otherwise a very strong gadget, because you're sitting there and what use have you gotten out of it other than to ring the phones and for none of your teammates to hear them and none of the defenders to feel any real pressure because they can just turn them off knowing that they're still probably on the roof of the tower trying to rappel down an elevator shaft whilst you're turning off your Samsung as soon as possible. So really, you got to be a lot more smart about the way that you deploy it and just use it when it's helpful. The hack is also not always profitable. Sometimes cameras will have been taken out by your teammates because the instinct is still there and the trade-off is still there, and that it's not always a good idea to leave them active on the off chance that a Dokkaebi is going to crack them. Sometimes it's better just to destroy them, but then again it leaves your Dokkaebi without that opportunity to open up the camera feed and use it for your team. But all of these things are just small considerations, because otherwise I'd say it's still a pretty useful gadget on the whole, and her kit is reasonable enough to justify her pick. I just don't think that she's the world ender people were trying to make her out to be from the start. I've never really felt any massive pressure from the cameras, because if I feel like a camera's going to be compromising me when it's been hacked, then I'll just shoot the bastard, because there's no real downside to me. I'm not necessarily going to have teammates who are watching the cams, and that cam might not necessarily give me any intel that I really want to know, so I'd rather just keep myself hidden by taking it out. Also, just to note, Vigil can counter this because he can't be seen by hacked cameras, so keep that in mind. It's also got a very, very long activation, so it leaves you incredibly vulnerable with your little laptop out whilst you're trying to hack into the bad boys. And if you're going to do that whilst you're near enemies, as much as it can help you out if you know that one's nearby and you can then zap them because they've got their phone out, similarly they can do the exact same thing, except your phone's a lot bigger and covers almost the whole screen when you're using it. So consider that, and consider how obscured your field of view is going to be whilst you're activating the gadget, and that applies to both the hack and the logic bomb. So when you're hacking, be safe. Get as close as you can to an operator that you know is around without being fully exposed. So if you know they're in a room nearby, that's where you want to pop it. You don't want to pop it where you're too far away, so that by the time you reach them they've already turned off the phone. But you don't want to be sitting underneath them whilst you're phoning them, because you're just going to get shot. If you suspect that someone's nearby and you've come in the other side of the map, maybe there's a Vigil or a Caveira on the team, then it might be useful just to pop it, but don't use it more than once in these situations, because you don't want to double bomb only to find out that you've got nothing out of it on both occasions. And it still might be worth just droning out before you go for the logic bomb to figure out who's nearby. But definitely it's a bit of a safety blanket, because you're guaranteed to set it off unless you happen to have Echo roaming around the map, which is a very unlikely scenario, because one, Echo never gets picked, and two, Echo never roams. Well, sometimes he does, but he shouldn't. If pressure's mounting and everyone's pushing on an objective, there's absolutely no reason why you shouldn't pop it, because it gives the defenders one other thing to think about, because they're sitting there all stressed and they might pull out their phone for a second and then stop or whatever, and it's just another thing for them to consider when they're already taking damage and taking pressure. So just mount it on, keep them frustrated and frightened. But don't be too gung-ho about it. If you've set it off and you know someone's nearby, if you're not close enough to snag the kill, or if they're in a strong position, don't come charging around a corner hoping for the best. Just put yourself in a stronger position. If you know they're in there and you can see exactly where they are and you hear them and they've taken the phone out, yeah, go for it, but it could easily backfire. Also, this applies to a lot of operators if you choose certain weapons, but know the limitations of the DMR. It's not always going to be the best weapon for certain sightlines. You're really good at long range and mid range, but when it comes to up close, it can be quite easy to lose your target, and because you don't have the advantage of full auto fire, a lot of your shots will end up missing, so you might be better just whipping out one of the SMGs and hoping for the best with those. In terms of nicking the cameras, I would leave these to your dead teammates rather than using them yourself. You don't want to be sitting looking at cams when you don't know if they're going to be useful, because you got to cycle through them, you got to know what the sightlines are, and it's just a lot of effort to put in when you could be out moving and scoring kills or whatever. So if you've got a teammate who's dead, give it to them. Be careful with the length of the hack as well. This just applies to when you use it. It takes a long time, and be sure to know and sort of learn how long it takes to pop it. So if it's a dodgy one and you're in a scary position, then don't bother pulling it out, because you're just going to get shot through your laptop. capitalising those long sightlines when you're using the DMR. If you're using the shotgun, you want to go for more mid-range to close range, but again, the meme cannon's not exactly the competitive option in this situation, so maybe reconsider and start using the DMR instead. And don't underestimate the viciousness of that SMG recoil. The SMG-12 in particular loses its accuracy very, very quickly, so you've got to be able to burst fire with this weapon, because it is ridiculously haywire after the first few rounds. Anyway guys, that's pretty much all there is to Dokkaebi as far as I'm concerned. She's a fun operator, but she's definitely not as destructively, massively powerful as people try to make her out to be. But she still has her quirks and she has a decent weapon, so hopefully you'll find some fun out of her. Anyway guys, hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you in the next one. Do svidania, bye bye.